Hi everyone, Rebecca McPhee here, accredited practicing dietitian and health coach. Probably one of the first questions you asked yourself when you were diagnosed with pre-diabetes is, what can I eat or what can't I eat? And it can be very tricky because there's so much misinformation online out there. It can be hard to decipher fact from fiction. And you may also have a well-intentioned loved one also telling you what to do. Well, no panic, because the dietary recommendations for people living with pre-diabetes is the same as the rest of Australians. And what we're focusing on are the 5 core food groups in the right quantity. And the good news also is that research shows that you can reduce your risk of type 2 diabetes by 58% by making some simple dietary changes and engaging in regular exercise. And also, if you need to lose weight, losing 5 to 10% of your body weight. And this is what we're going to focus on today, looking at what we can eat rather than what we can't eat. And this has come from my pantry, fridge and freezer. And if we start off with the first macronutrient, our proteins, and protein is really important because not only does it contribute to satiety, that feeling of fullness, which is good with weight management, but in general it does not impact blood glucose levels. And that is key when preventing type 2 diabetes, is keeping those blood glucose levels down. And so I've got some fresh and frozen and tin proteins, so having a selection of them. I've got some fresh red meat, I've got some frozen lean pork mince, and I've got some chicken thigh. I find that chicken thigh has more flavour and is less dry than chicken breast. I've got some duck breast. And one of my go-to proteins, particularly for breakfast and sometimes lunch, are eggs. And also another go-to protein is the tin tuna in spring water. And one thing to keep in mind is we're all feeling the pinch when it comes to the increasing cost of living, that we need to really look at a variety of food sources if we're trying to keep within a budget. So 95 cents for a can of tuna is fantastic, and also that lean pork mince is only $6 for 500 grams. So really trying to look at ways of keeping that cost down. And so from the proteins, another important macronutrient, and probably the most talked about macronutrient, are our carbohydrates. Now, carbs can come in 2 types, starches and sugars. So starches, we're looking here at good quality carbohydrates that are low GI. So low GI carbs are ones that break down more slowly and give you a gentle rise in blood sugar, compared to high GI foods, which tend to be very white and processed, and they don't fill you, so you tend to eat more. That means that low GI foods not only is key for blood glucose management, but also for weight management. And the best example I can give you is when you look at breakfast cereals in the supermarket, just forget all of them, most of them, because they tend to be very refined and very expensive, and go for good old-fashioned rolled oats, which is not only cheap but very, very good for you. You can make porridge, or you could make your own homemade granola or muesli, or buy a granola or muesli that doesn't have a lot of sugar in it. With bread, again, a lot of people think they have to cut out bread. It's not about cutting out, it's not stopping, it's swapping. So rather than the white processed breads, go for grain-based breads or an authentic sourdough. I have a low GI, high fibre bread because my 3-year-old does not like the grains, and neither does my husband. So there's so much to choose from. And also, when you look at wrap breads, they are very popular in the past 2 decades. A lot of wrap breads can have as much carbohydrate in them per serve, so per one wrap bread, as 3 to 4 slices of bread. That's a lot of carbohydrate. So if you think you're being healthier going for wrap bread, just be very careful. And the one I always choose is a lower carb wrap bread. It tends to be higher in protein and higher in fibre, and you are slashing the amount of carbs that you're eating. And it's important because we don't want to have too much sugar in the blood by eating too many carbs. So remember, small amount, not no carbs, and not too many carbs. And I've also got pasta, basmati rice, absolutely fine. Your humble spud, you can get lower GI potatoes. And when you look at carbohydrates, carbs are also your dairy foods, so it's another core food group. Milk comes from milk sugar, lactose, and so does your yogurt. So forget a lot of those sweetened yogurts in the supermarket and go for a natural or Greek one. and then you can sweeten it yourself with maybe some cinnamon or a tiny drizzle of honey or a little bit of fruit. Much, much better for you. And I didn't mention before, with the dairy foods, cheese is also a protein, but it's also a dairy food. It doesn't have any carbs in it. But with cheese, you don't need to go for the super low fat cheeses because they tend to be higher in sodium or salt. Go for normal cheese and just watch the quantity. And when you look at carbohydrates as well, fruit is also a carbohydrate because one of the sugars that it contains is fructose or fruit sugar. And the recommendations is that we include at least 2 serves a day. So just because fruit tastes sweet, for example, in season at the moment we've got plums, most fruits are low GI. They break down more slowly compared to if you had a slice of white bread. And that's turned the whole theory of prevent diabetes by cutting out sugar. It's just dispelled that theory because we know that it's the type of sugar in a food that actually impacts weight and blood sugar levels. So a little bit of fructose is okay. So I've got some plums, some blueberries. Now we know if fruit is not in season, it will be more expensive and not be at its nutritional peak. So go for frozen berries, for example, tinned fruit and natural juice. And I've also got prunes, which I buy all year round. Prunes are very high in antioxidants. And I use them a lot, particularly when blueberries are expensive. And a few of those, maybe 3 as a snack or putting in your porridge. So fruit is in. Also our vegetables, of course. We all know that vegetables and salads are very important. The trick is to really try to bulk your meals up with that colour because they're high in antioxidants. And these veggies I've got here are very low carbohydrates, so we want more of them, and then a small amount of your starchy carbs. I've got some of the green, broccolini is in season at the moment, so cheap. So is capsicum, it's quite good at the moment in Australia in summer. I've also got the frozen peas, so including that in the diet. And the other macronutrient to think about are your essential fats. So it's not going low fat, it's swapping the high saturated fats for the mono and polyunsaturated fats. And the king of all oils, included in the fat group, is your olive oil, your extra virgin olive oil. Very, very good for you and part of the Mediterranean diet. I've got another one here as well. I've got a lemon infused one and then just a plain extra virgin olive oil. Avocado technically is a fruit, but it's also a pure fat, high in monounsaturated fats. And in Australia at the moment, they're quite cheap. I got this for $2. So it's a perfect addition to salads and also maybe on your morning toast. Very high in fiber as well. And I've got 100% nut butters, so an almond or a peanut butter. Forget the ones that are low fat, maybe they're saying 25% less fat, just get rid of that, just go for the whole nut butters. Much better for you. Less carbohydrate in them and less sodium and sugar. And I've got some seeds and nuts, so I use that as a snack. A small handful or a quarter of a cup makes a great snack, high in fats and protein. But I also use these almonds and pepitas for my homemade granola, which is very, very, very delicious. So you can see that at the moment we are focusing on what we can eat rather than what we can't eat. Now, when we're looking at recipes, rather than using bottled sauces and sachets, flavouring foods from basic herbs and spices is the way to go. You're going to save a fortune. So when I flavour foods, I use a selection of spices and herbs. One of my go-to spices is smoked paprika because it gives it that flavour of chorizo, minus the fat. I use thyme and basil and coriander, a lot of fresh coriander. So fresh and dried herbs, garlic and onion. I also use a lot of Dijon mustard for dressing. So I'll use Dijon mustard with a bit of white wine vinegar and olive oil. Makes a really good vinaigrette. And also I've got the balsamic vinegar that goes really well with olive oil over tomatoes and bocconcini cheese and some basil leaves for a beautiful salad in summer that also has a very Christmassy look, and it's Christmas in summertime in Australia, so it's a perfect addition to the Christmas table. Also, red wine, part of the Mediterranean diet. I use this in a lot of casseroles and soups, particularly with tomatoes and thyme and garlic and onion. It gives it real flavour, as does the tomato paste. Really, really, really good. And you can buy tomato paste bulk and put them in the little ice cube trays, and then you'll save a lot of money when you do bulk buy. And there's no need to cut sugars completely out of your diet. Low GI honeys, they're the floral honeys such as yellow box and pure maple syrup, are a perfect addition to baking. Keeping it to about 1/4 cup per batch, or a little drizzle on your yogurt if you find that cinnamon's not enough on the Greek yogurt, is not a problem. We can keep this in our diet. You don't need sweeteners if you're using it in moderation. And that's it. It's moderation. If you can eat this 80% of the time, and then 20% of the time include your treats, such as it might be gelato or going out for fish and chips or whatever your favorite foods are, moderation is key so you can live healthily and enjoy life and prevent type 2 diabetes.